Time for a Black History Month fact. So today I want to talk about someone lesser known in the world of Black history, and that is this guy, Mr. Leroy Moton. So when Leroy was 15 years old, he was working at an all-white restaurant, and he was a dishwasher. And his employer told him that if he were to get involved with that troublemaker, he didn't say troublemaker, king, that he would kick his butt through his nose. And that was when Leroy decided that he was definitely going to get into civil rights work. So fast forward a little bit, Leroy decided to take part in the fight for the securing of voting rights for African Americans by taking a part in the march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. The march, of course, took several days, but it ended successfully on March 25th at the Capitol in Montgomery. And after the march was over, Leroy was working with a fellow marcher by the name of Viola Liuzzo. This is Mrs. Liuzzo, and this is where we will end part 1. So, we are back for part 2 on Leroy Moton. So when we left, I told you guys that Leroy would be working with Mrs. Viola Liuzzo. So Viola Liuzzo came all the way from Detroit, Michigan to Selma, Alabama to help with the march. And when the march was finally completed on March 25th and Dr. King gave his speech and everything, it was basically time for everyone to go home. So Viola stayed behind to shuttle people back and forth between Selma to Montgomery and vice versa, so people could catch their planes and their flights and get home and what have you. Well, on one of the trips, which I believe was supposed to be the last trip, she took Mr. Moton with her to help with the shuttling. He was a passenger and she was a driver. And they were spotted by Klan members while driving in Lowndes County, and that's where we'll start part. So this is part 3. And when we left, we were talking about how Leroy Moton and Mrs. Liuzzo, Viola Liuzzo, were driving through Lowndes County together. She was driving, he was in the passenger seat, and they were spotted by Klan members. So the Klan members spotted these out-of-town Detroit plates and a car with a white woman and a black man, and they decided to open fire on the car. Mrs. Liuzzo was killed instantly. She was 39 years old. So Leroy miraculously survived the gunfire, and he was knocked unconscious when the car hit a ditch, and the Klan came to check on them and assumed that they were both dead. So after that, Leroy would sit in 3 different trials to testify against these men and what they did to him and Mrs. Liuzzo. So, part 4. As I said, Leroy would go on to testify against the men who tried to kill him and did kill Mrs. Liuzzo in 3 different trials. Those men would only get 10 years for their crime. They were never convicted of murder. Instead, they were charged with intimidation and trying to block them from exercising their civil rights. And one of the 4 men, because only 3 of those men did the 10 years, the other man had immunity, and he was actually an FBI informant. So, but I don't want to spend time on those men right now. I want to spend the time on Mr. Moton. This is a more recent picture of Leroy Moton. He's alive today. And I want us to remember him and his courage and think about him and his courage, because not only did it take an immense amount of courage to stand trial and testify against those men 3 different times, but it also took courage to join the marches in the first place. So thank you, and happy Black History Month.
Hey, yo, you ever notice how scared we are of our emotions? Being humans, a condition controlling. I'm just trying to shine bright in the sky, but the devil working overtime, cause I'm just trying to clear my head, but my thoughts just keep getting louder.